Hi everyone, I'm here to talk about my current disorder or disease or however you want to define it. It's called chronic idiopathic urticaria. Now, I don't see a lot of people talking about it, so I wanted to come and share my story with this. I've had it now for 2 years and it has affected my day-to-day life for at least a majority of that time. I couldn't do anything without risk of a flare. I couldn't just go out and eat whatever I wanted. I had to change my diet, though it didn't help because there's no actual link to a food allergy or anything like that. It just happens when it wants to happen. So chronic idiopathic urticaria is a form of hive that results in itchy red bumps or wheals on a person's skin. People with CIU usually have flares that last for a couple months or several years. So I'm in the several year category, which after 6 months, you're considered chronic idiopathic urticaria. Anything less than 6 months is idiopathic urticaria. So it's considered an autoimmune disease, but it is considered short-lived. So it's not the rest of your life, but it could last several years. So chronic, meaning over 6 months. Idiopathic means that there's an undefined origin because they don't know what causes it. And urticaria, which is defined as autoimmune. So that is what the breakdown of the word of the diagnosis is over 6 months, undefined origin, and autoimmune. So I have been on a high dose reactin, high dose antihistamine for the last 2 years. So when you go to the store and you buy an antihistamine, you usually get the 5 gram or 5 milligram, whatever, the 5. If you get the extra strength, you'll get the 10. Now, from when you get it prescribed, you're given a 20, which is double of the high dose for that you can get over the counter. I have been on 2 of those a day, so 40 a day. I have just recently started to cut back. So right now I am on a night dose of 20, and then I do a half, so 10, only when needed. So if I wake up in the morning, because my mornings are usually the worst, because at night you're a lot warmer and you don't move around as much. So it can cause more issues. So usually I wake up and I have most of my issues. That's when it starts. And then throughout the day, they get a little better. So I have a night dose before I go to bed to help with that reaction. And then now I have a half pill of 10 only when needed. So it's about once or twice a week. I'm hoping it stays that way for now. But we are heading into spring, which you'll see all the reactions. I'll list them in a bit. So that could go up again, depending on if this is actually getting better. So triggers. Triggers are kind of all out there. Pretty much everything people deal with on a daily basis. So that's why I say that I have dealt with it in my day-to-day life for the last 2 years. So triggers are stress and anxiety. Who doesn't have stress? Who doesn't have anxiety? You can't really control that. You can try and do things to de-stress and, let things go. But if you have it built up in the back of your mind and you don't realize it, there's nothing you can do about it but just wait it out. Because built up stress, it festers and there's really nothing you can do about it. Scratching. So if I have a welt on my arm and I scratch it, I can't remember what they called it, but then I get like a multitude of them that just pop up there. or if I don't have one on my leg, but I have one on my arm, and for some reason I'm feeling itchy on my leg, if I scratch that area, I'll have a trail of them on that spot. So it's very reactive, very, very intense. Pets. So I have 2 cats, and I know that cats are probably the worst with this disease, but I'm not getting rid of my cats. So I just kind of have to wait it out. I'm cleaning a lot more than I usually do just to try to get rid of as much of the dander as I can. I've switched to couch covers so that I can wash them instead of just trying to vacuum them, so I can actually wash them. Outdoors. So right now it's winter. I live in Canada and we get to minus 40 degrees on a regular basis here, and we don't go outside a lot in the winter, unless if you're going to go tobogganing or anything like that, but I don't have kids yet, so we don't do a lot of that. The only reason I'd go outside is to just kind of take care of our lot, so to shovel or things like that, just to go to work. I do have a job where I have to go outside every once in a while, so that does happen. And so it is reactive to hot, extreme hot and extreme cold. So of course here in Canada we get both. So I just have to be careful, basically. Other illnesses. So if you get sick, it'll react a lot faster. It'll be more intense. So if I get a cold or anything like that, I will get a flare, and it's not fun. Exercise. So I've been trying to exercise, but every time I do, I get welts all over my body because you're causing your body to sweat, and the extreme heat will cause a flare. So I have to be very careful with that. And it doesn't help because I have PCOS, which makes it really hard to lose weight, and I wanted to work out and, try to combat this, and we're thinking about going through IVF, so I want to lose a little bit of weight before that. But with CIU, I can't. I do as much as I can without hurting my body, without causing it to go into a reactive state. But sometimes the day's worse and I can't do anything about it. Your menstrual cycle. So luckily I have PCOS, so my cycles are a little bit longer apart, except we've been going through treatments, so they've been pretty regular. For the first year, it was just kind of whenever I'd have a cycle, then I'd have it. But the last year or so, we've been going through treatments. I seem to have flares during my luteal cycles, so my progesterone is higher, and so I think mine is more reactive to progesterone. And then tight clothing. So if you're wearing anything that's really restrictive, can cause you to sweat, just pushes a lot on your skin, doesn't have any breathing room, it can cause a reaction. And like I said, my reactions are head to toe. So I've had them all over my face, I've had them all over my chest, my arms are on a regular basis, my legs, I get swelling, so I've actually had where my lips are swollen, and it actually happens kind of in quadrants. So it'll be like the top half on this side and the bottom half on this side, or the full bottom in one of the corners. It's whatever it wants. I've had my eyes puff up where I can't even see. Not to the point where I can't breathe. It's more just the mucosal membranes swell. So like my tonsil area will swell. So it feels like my throat is closing, but I can still breathe because it doesn't affect my bronchial tubes. It doesn't affect the actual throat, just the back of your throat. So I couldn't talk. Yeah, it's it's pretty intense. So when I had that happen, I made the mistake. So when you're given the diagnosis of chronic idiopathic urticaria, you are told you cannot, so these are the triggers that you should avoid. And then these are the drugs you should avoid. So anything like Advil, aspirin, things like that. You can take Tylenol, and you can take Reactin. That's about it. Anything else is considered an ASA or an NSAID. You can't take that because this reacts to that. So I was having a really bad headache one time, and Tylenol wasn't helping. And a friend of mine was like, hey, well, I take this and it really helps. And I was at such a point in this headache. I'd had it for 3 days. It wasn't going away. It wasn't letting go. And so she told me, maybe it's a migraine. So maybe you just need to take something that will kind of take the edge off. So I decided to go home early from work, and I took a half of this drug that she gave me. And I didn't do my research, of course, thinking that it was, I don't even know what I was thinking at that point because I was just in so much pain. And of course, I got home and my eye was swollen a little bit. I figured, okay, well, it's a good thing I'm home. So I decided to go rest. And then within an hour, I couldn't see. And then an hour later, I couldn't talk. And my throat just felt like there was a ball at the back of my throat. I had gotten some hives. I was in such intense fear at that point. I do have an EpiPen, so I had it near me just in case if for some reason I couldn't breathe anymore. I ended up calling my family to take me to the hospital because I couldn't talk, I couldn't see, I was scared I wasn't going to be able to breathe. If you've ever seen a show where they show an allergic reaction to peanuts, that is what I looked like. It just looked terrible. It was scary. And then, so I get to the hospital, and of course it's COVID, so they don't just let you walk in because we're in a small town. So I'm waiting between the doors at the emergency room, and they tell me just to wait. And I'm like, you can see my face is swollen. I can't see. And they're not letting me in. And I'm kind of holding my throat so that they'll kind of get the hint that I need to be seen right now. So finally someone comes through the door and they take a better look at me, and they're like, okay, like, we need to get you in a room right now. So what did you eat? And at that point, like I said, I could not talk. The only way I could talk is if I pressed right here on my throat so that a little bit of sound would come out. And I'm trying to tell her I didn't eat anything, but I did take a drug. So I'm telling her I have chronic idiopathic urticaria. It is taking a long time to describe what I have because I can't speak. My dad had driven me to the hospital. He couldn't come in with me. So there's no way for me to communicate what is going on because I can't talk. So they gave me a high dose of prednisone to help take down the reaction, as it is a high dose anti-inflammatory. It's used for a lot of other things. I used to take it all the time when I'd have really bad, because I also have asthma, so I'd have to take it sometimes when I was having a really bad attack, or it was getting to that point. If I was having a really bad time, I'd have to take a dose of prednisone. Thing about prednisone for me is that every time I take prednisone, I gain weight, and it's every time, and it's impossible to lose. And I don't know why that happens to me, but it's every single time. Every time I go on a dose of prednisone, I gain about 10 pounds. It's not water retention, I just gain 10 pounds. I don't have an aversion to food, which some people note that they have an aversion to food when they go on prednisone and they're just not hungry. I am not overly hungry. I eat the same, so I don't understand why it does that to me, but every single time I can count for sure. I can weigh myself before the prednisone and after, and I've gained anywhere from 5 to 10 pounds. So how it started for me. They say that it is triggered by a virus or an illness. They don't know how it starts. They can only assume. So they assume that it started by this. When it happened, I had started keto. So I had started keto in July, and we were doing a softball tournament for charity. So we were doing a lot of exercising, a lot of running, and practicing softball. And so I started noticing that I was getting rashes under my breasts. So I figured, okay, it's just from sweat, from running, from doing all this exercise that my body just isn't used to, because it's very high dose, very like when you're running bases or whatever. I'm not used to that. I'm used to more weightlifting. So they have this thing called Keto Rash. Now, this is when your body goes into ketosis and you start you do a lot of exercising or things like that. Your body starts secreting, instead of just basic sweat, it starts secreting more acid type liquids. So because your body's in ketosis, it's eliminating acid instead of just sweat. So I thought, okay, that's what this is. This rash is just me going into ketosis and it's causing these rashes. So I'm just going to stop. I'm going to, do my usual thing, and then I'll go back into keto. So it was after that it just kept going, kept getting worse and worse and worse. I also ended up breaking my nose during that tournament. That's a whole other story. It was about a week after I started noticing I would get hives on my chest. So not just under my breasts, but along my chest. And then if I didn't take in any histamine, it would spread to my legs. And it was just a few spots here and there, but they were very itchy. And then it was shortly after that I woke up one morning and it was everywhere, and just these little spots. And it looked like I had it looked like freckles, but red and itchy, and my whole body just burnt because it was so itchy. So I went to my doctor, just kind of told him, hey, this is what's happening. I don't know what to do. I'm in agony all the time. I feel my body is on fire. So he took one look at me, heard my symptoms, and said, you have chronic idiopathic urticaria. I was like, okay, great. You know what this is. What can we do about it? He said, I'm going to give you antihistamines. You're going to take that every day. Other than that, there's nothing we can do about it. And at that point, I was in tears because I was already on antihistamines. I wasn't on as much as he was giving me, but I was so fed up at that point. I'd been dealing with this for over a month, where I could barely stand to be at work because I was just in constant agony. So what he said is, well, you're a couple months into this. Right now, you're considered idiopathic urticaria. If this lasts 6 months, you will be switched over to chronic idiopathic urticaria. And he said, so if you're lucky, it will last 6 months and then stop. If you're not, I have people I've been treating for 5 years. Which my in that moment, I was just like, oh shit. Like, my hopefulness in the moment when he said, oh, I know what this is, to when he said, it could be years that you're dealing with this, my hope just plummeted. And he said, the antihistamines will take away the majority of your symptoms, but it will not cure you. He said there is no cure. So after months and months of dealing with this, after this, I finally told my doctor, I want to know if there is a food-related issue. I have done an allergy test way back in the day, but I told him I need to know if there is a food source to this, because I feel like when I eat certain foods, it makes it worse, and which it does, but it doesn't mean it's an allergic reaction. But because I was in so much agony, he agreed. He's like, okay, we'll send you to an allergist. It could take up to 6 months to get in, but at least we can get this going and we can find out whether there is a trigger other than just idiopathic. So I finally got in to see the doctor, the allergist, and she basically said the same thing. There is no cure. She said that the dosage of antihistamines I was on was not enough for me because of my symptoms, because of the severity of my symptoms. So that's when she doubled it to twice a day. So she said one of these a day is on the lower end of what she treats. And luckily, so because an allergist, even though this is not allergies, she does treat this disease in particular, even though there's not really a treatment. So she does see it pretty much every day, people thinking they're coming in for allergies, and it just turns out to be chronic idiopathic urticaria. So it's not very common, but because it is a hive reaction, it's causing, so which makes it look like an allergic reaction, she sees it almost every day. So I've been seeing her about every 6 months. Last call that I've had with her, she asked me how my symptoms were, if I was having any peek through. I told her I'm having less and less peek through. So she decided, okay, well, you're going to lower your dosage. So you're going to go down to 1 at night and half in the morning. If you feel comfortable, and that's fine, you can switch to half in the morning only if required. So that's what I'm doing right now, is that only half in the morning if required. I have noticed I've had to take it a couple times a week, mostly during my cycle, so during the luteal phase. Like we said, that the luteal phase is the worst for me. So we've been doing that. I feel like it's getting a lot better. I might even switch to half, so a 10 and a 10. So 10 at night and then 10 if required, or 10 in the morning, and just split it up so that it's I can kind of wean down to make sure that this is in fact kind of getting better. As far as this disease goes, it sucks that there is no cure. It sucks that there is no cause, that they cannot determine why this happens, especially because it's not something you're going to live with for the rest of your life. It just kind of happens. I remember at my wedding, my aunt had to leave early because she came to me and her lip was swollen, and I thought it was, maybe I forgot to check the ingredient of a certain food and there was something in there that she was allergic to, and it was only when I found out that I had chronic idiopathic urticaria that she was like, that's what I was dealing with when you got married. Like, that's why we had to leave early, and that's why my lip was swollen. So it's nice having someone in the family who understands what I'm going through. But it's, all in all, it's just insane that there's no cure, there's no cause. I mean, I'm finally at the point in my journey where it's coming hopefully close to the end, especially seeing as we're going through our IVF treatments soon. I don't want to react to them, but I'm fully prepared to have a reaction, and I don't care. I'm not quitting. The amount of money we're putting towards it, I work in a job where I can only take vacation right now. And even though it's not vacation, it's just having the flexibility to go to appointments and take a day off last minute. I can only do that right now. Otherwise, I have to wait until not even the end of summer, but basically winter. I have to wait until November before I can do that again. And I'm going to be 32 tomorrow. I don't want to wait basically a year. I have low AMH and other issues, so that I'll talk about in another video. But yeah, so things are getting better. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments. I'll try to respond and kind of give you more details if you'd like. If you're interested, or you know somebody who's going through it, let me know kind of how long they dealt with it. Do you have any experience with it? What you went through? Yeah, just trying to build some awareness to this disease, disorder, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, and we will talk to you soon.